It came from above. Just for a fleeting moment, flying low in a plane across a 1940s Polish landscape, the fresh, comforting smell of warm bread baked by Esther's mother clashed with the piercing roar of the engine. Esther Goldman had no father. He died when she was 7. It was just her mother, and her 9 siblings. They'd all heard the rumors, but like the other Jewish kids on the street, they shrugged them off as just wild stories. Their mother knew better.
We heard they are doing very, very bad things. They are burning houses, and they are killing people. But nobody believed it.
It wasn't until her street was burned and she walked among the ashes, past dead Jewish neighbors who hadn't managed to escape, that she believed she figured out what the plane had been. A signal. I'm Doug Frazier, and this is Stars Among Us. Esther would later spend long days in the ammunition factory of Auschwitz, paying witness to the panorama of horrors unfolding before her. But she didn't know that yet. For now, she watched as soldiers arrived in her small town.
We realized that everything my mother said was true. A lot of people were waiting outside. We were inside in the house. My mother wouldn't let the children out. I had some brothers older than me. I remember she put them on the attic because we heard rumors that they had taken the young men and they killed the old people. And maybe half an hour later, they poured some gasoline. They poured something. We seen to the window. And when the fire started, we all ran to the back doors, and who could run? They ran to the cemetery. That was the only place you could hide, at the cemetery. And we stayed there a whole night. It wasn't that late in the afternoon. And the next morning, kids, we ran downtown to see what happened.
Their entire street, where mostly Jews lived, was gone.
There was nothing left. Everything was burned.
Esther, her mother, and her 9 siblings took refuge with a Jewish family whose house had survived. But safety for Jews in 1942 Europe, especially Poland, was non-existent. More rumors reached the town, traveling along in secret between the members of the Jewish community in Sukhowai, Poland. They're coming, they said. This time, to take us all away. Safekeeping for children came at a cost. Her mother, like many other Jewish caretakers had done, stuffed her children's hands with their jewelry and layered their bodies with as many clothes as she could. The kids could trade temporary safety for a bit of gold, their lives for a hand-woven overcoat.
We all went to the forest. Especially to send the children away. And when we got to the forest, there were so many people up there. I couldn't believe it. The whole town almost, except the sick, the old, and the people where they couldn't do it. And when it got dark, all of a sudden, we could hear shooting. The Germans were there.
German rifles and spotlights lit up the dark forest. What else could Esther do but run? An outer garment bought Esther short-term safety. She and 16 other Jews crowded into an underground excavation once used to store potatoes. 14 days of no bathing, little food and water. Night and day she scratched at the lice that covered her skin. Much of her youth was spent on the run, hiding from things that meant her harm, only to find other dangers. And she wasn't alone. Her mother and sisters gave all their jewelry to a safekeeper, who then turned them over to the Germans.
When they had got them everything, they raped them, all 3 of them. My mother, my sister, my little sister. And then they called the Germans and they killed them.
Esther grew weary of running. She gave herself up and was taken by train to a ghetto in Białystok. But it wasn't long before she was running again, hiding from incoming soldiers, getting caught and thrown into a cattle train to Birkenau, where for countless hours she stood crammed in stench and sweat, dead babies at her feet. Now she wanted to run, but it was too late.
When we got out of the train, the smell hit you right there in your head. 2 crematoriums was burning. We didn't know what it was. You could smell flesh, burning flesh. The smoke was so big, the old concentration camp was just lit up from the smoke, but we still didn't know what it was.
The details singed themselves into her memory. She remembered her block number, 15. She remembered working 6 days a week in the fields and the dogs killing those too weak to walk back to camp. She remembered being forced to dig graves. Toys were given to the children who were then placed in the graves. Soldiers doused them with a liquid which instantly caught fire with a lit match. Esther always remembered.
So many thousands of people. And all around was SS with German shepherds. And they put some tattoos on your arm. That is your name. You do not have a name.
Auschwitz later became her home. Day and night, the sound of pain and torture enveloped her. The dark of night hid frail bones and malnourished lips. The morning light revealed the dead. By 1945, Esther and the other prisoners were evacuated from Auschwitz. The war was drawing to a close, and Soviet forces were approaching the camp. The Germans sought to hide the evidence of their crimes. The result for Esther was a death march to Ravensbrück, the largest women's concentration camp in the German Reich, which was continually expanded until 1945 to also include a men's camp. Along the path of the Long March, the dead lay in piles. Deeper into Germany she was taken until one evening she looked out from her holding cell, and the guards were gone. The Germans were on the run. Just as suddenly as it had started, it ended. Decades later, in the daytime, love flowed from Esther's heart. It was when night settled in and her dreams slipped into nightmares that hell seeped into her life again. This time, she was the mother on the run, taking her own children by the hand, giving them jewelry to trade for safety, hiding them in dark places in hopes they'd survive, if only for one more night. Each morning, she awoke to find herself still alive, safe in bed, the earthly musk of the forest lingering in her mind like a breath in the cold night, like a dream that never really ends.
I'll walk all of the miles you want me to walk.
This episode is dedicated to Esther, who passed away at the age of 76 on December 14th, 2001. She spent her life sharing her story of survival through television interviews, school speeches, and writings, even when people didn't believe her, which happened often, especially in the several decades following the Holocaust. May she rest in peace, and may we carry her story with us, always. Stars Among Us is brought to you by the Holocaust Commission of the United Jewish Federation of Tidewater and other fine sponsors, and has been funded in part by a grant from Virginia Humanities. If you're interested in finding out more about the Holocaust and Esther Goldman's story, please visit holocaustcommission.org/starsamongus. Our producer is Elka Mennick. Our executive producers are Wendy Jurin-Auerbach and Gail Litwin Flax. Stars Among Us is distributed by WHRO Public Media.